All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of modern media. We are looking at a recent and honestly highly charged broadcast from Sky News Australia. We're going to dive into how political commentary these days seamlessly blends local government elections, national political endorsements, and celebrity pop culture drama all into one continuous, fast-paced narrative. Now, I'm going to guide you through a strictly impartial chronological breakdown of this exact segment. We'll look at the specific arguments the host and guest are making, how they actually construct their viewpoints, and what the whole shebang tells us about the mechanics of modern punditry. So we kick things off with a question that honestly sounds like a Hollywood movie pitch, but it's actually the surprising news hook of the broadcast. Can reality TV stars save Los Angeles? The show opens up right out of the gate by discussing Spencer Pratt. And yes, we're talking about Spencer Pratt from MTV's The Hills. They highlight his reported late surge in the polls for the Los Angeles mayoral race. The host frames Pratt's candidacy as this refreshing, honest alternative to the current political establishment. Okay, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll cover Spencer Pratt's mayoral bid. Then, we'll look at the panel's take on celebrities and political endorsements. Third, we'll break down their really harsh critique of the Cynthia Erivo Wicked controversy. And finally, we'll look at how they dissect Rosie O'Donnell's recent facelift.
Section 1. Spencer Pratt's mayoral bid. Let's get right into it. To explain exactly why a massive upset could be on the cards against incumbent Mayor Karen Bass and City Council member Nithya Raman, the host brings on podcaster and LA native Zach Peter. And he draws this stark, vivid contrast to explain Pratt's appeal, basically painting a picture of two very different Los Angeleses. On one side, he recalls the heart of LA, a city that experienced a vibrant renaissance, especially downtown, serving as the glittering hub of Hollywood. But on the other side, well, he describes current LA in incredibly grim terms. He claims he can't even walk his dogs in the nice part of downtown without stepping over shattered glass and navigating around people who are, as he puts it, zombied out on super meth. According to the broadcast, the current leadership is just entirely out of touch with this daily reality. And this is where the commentators really align themselves perfectly with Spencer Pratt's economic argument. The host reads a quote directly from Pratt. He says, "Karen and Nithya treat productions like a nuisance, and they've killed our golden goose." The panel argues that the entertainment industry, which is literally the lifeblood of the city, is going extinct in LA. They say it's fleeing to Canada and other states because local leaders have just made filming way too difficult. The host goes as far as to claim that Hollywood has gone woke and essentially killed its own money-making power. So they present Pratt as the savior who's finally going to strip away all that red tape. Section 2. Celebrities and political endorsements. Now, shifting gears from local mayoral politics straight to the national stage. The pivot here happens via Donald Trump's Freedom 250 concert series. The host reports that several artists actually pulled out of the event, and Trump's response to this is highlighted on the broadcast. He says, "I understand artists are getting the yips having to do their performance on Wednesday, so I'm thinking about bringing the #1 attraction anywhere in the world," referring, of course, to himself. Now, this quote acts as a massive springboard for the commentators to start discussing the broader cultural stigma surrounding conservative political endorsements in the entertainment industry. So, guest Zach Peter jumps in and argues that in today's polarized climate, public figures simply must go all in. He lists off several examples of celebrities who are currently navigating these political crosshairs. He points to Kim Kardashian, for instance, who pushed through potential cancellation to work with the Trump administration on prison reform. He mentions Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock as guys who unapologetically lean into their pro-Trump stances. And then he brings up Carrie Underwood, who he notes took a massive hit for her political affiliations. The core argument they're making here is that artists should anticipate pushback from what they call the woke crowd, but they need to stand firmly by their values anyway to pave the way for others. And this whole discussion leads to a very direct expression of frustration from the host, who poses a big question. Why is there such a stigma around being openly pro-Republican? The host argues that an artist's political backing really shouldn't matter. He contrasts the backlash conservative artists face with Kamala Harris bringing Beyoncé on stage, an event the host flat out describes as a disaster. The segment essentially asks, why is the entertainment industry so hesitant to associate with Trump when, as the host is quick to point out, he was voted in by the majority of Americans? Section 3. The Cynthia Erivo controversy.
All right, from national politics, the broadcast takes a really hard pivot straight into pop culture. To kick off their discussion around the Wicked movie premiere, the host brings up a recent Variety interview where Cynthia Erivo defends herself against viral online criticism. You see, people had mocked Erivo for seemingly acting like a protective bodyguard around her co-star Ariana Grande. Now, Erivo's response is profound. She says, "I think we haven't really come to terms with the insidious nature of how we view Black women." She explains that the public's assumptions about her being controlling stemmed directly from judgments about her physique, her height, and her choice to be bald. Now, the broadcast's reaction to Erivo's explanation is incredibly fierce. Where Erivo states she was judged on her race, physique, and baldness, the host immediately fires back, accusing her of pulling the race card. Where Erivo felt the public unfairly assumed she was a controlling bodyguard, the commentators insist that, no, her behavior with Grande was genuinely cringy, weird, and bizarre. And finally, to counter Erivo's point that the focus was solely on her appearance, Zach Peter argues that both actresses were equally trolled for looking emaciated. Furthermore, he argues that Erivo's weight and her choice to shave her head are elective decisions, heavily suggesting she has no right to complain about the public's reaction to choices she made herself.
The segment wraps up this topic with a pretty heavy-handed dismissal of Erivo's feelings. They literally label her media appearances a sympathy tour and claim she's living in a land of victimhood delusion. The commentators argue that, hey, Erivo was widely praised for her vocal talent and generated massive wealth from the film. The guest emphatically states that instead of singing Defying Gravity, Erivo actually needs to learn how to defy her ego and recognize her immense privilege rather than playing the victim.
Section 4. Rosie O'Donnell's facelift. Transitioning to the very last topic of the broadcast, the panel reacts to Rosie O'Donnell publicly revealing before and after photos of her recent cosmetic surgery. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is how the commentators frame this medical procedure as a profound ideological hypocrisy. The host points out that O'Donnell previously spoke out very strongly against facelifts. She called them a betrayal of feminism, a betrayal of aging women worldwide. So the guest uses this massive pivot to criticize O'Donnell's broader activism, stating that when someone stands for ambiguous empathy cards but fails to pick a lane in their own life, well, it shows they don't really stand for anything at all.
To really drive this point home, the guest contrasts Rosie O'Donnell with reality TV matriarch Kris Jenner. In the eyes of the commentators, Kris Jenner is actually respectable because she just rocks her new face and completely owns her choices without making any excuses. O'Donnell, on the other hand, is labeled insufferable and out of touch because, according to the panel, she continually complains about her privilege while simultaneously utilizing her massive wealth to afford a really expensive deep plane facelift.
And that brings us to the end of our breakdown. By tracking the flow of this single broadcast from the gritty streets of Los Angeles straight to the red carpet of Hollywood, we can see exactly how modern punditry operates behind the scenes. It takes local governance, national political identity, and highly personal pop culture grievances, and it just flattens them all into one continuous narrative of us versus them. So I want to leave you with this final question to reflect on. When we consume media that so seamlessly blends municipal policy with celebrity takedowns, are we actually being informed about the world around us, or are we simply being programmed to be enraged? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you watch.